Eldame Empire. In the middle of the empire stood a majestic palace that towered high above the any building. As night fell, the great imperial palace was illuminated by the warm glow of hundreds of flickering candles and glittering chandeliers. Please dance with me as well, Your Highness. It's my turn now, Your Highness. The most beautiful woman in the world danced in the center of the grand hall. Once the song ended, she raised her hand in greeting. The people around her cheered and spilled wine from their glasses. The only empress of the empire, and the emperor's only sister. Guests from far and wide had gathered to pay their respects to the great ruler and partake in the lavish festivity. The woman's name was Cayena Hill, and she was the first princess of the Eldame Empire. A blonde-haired man approached Cayena and congratulated her. It was her brother. Cayena was also the elder sister of His Majesty, Emperor Rizef. It is Cayena's birthday today, and the grand celebration was for the occasion. A man with a pitch-black attire which complemented his hair watched from afar. It was Duke Raphael Kedri, one of the Empire's loyal vassals. Rizef replaced his cold expression with a smile and placed his lips on the back of Cayena's hand. Cayena, the beloved princess, was considered the most beautiful woman in the Empire. Her sapphire eyes can make anyone lose their composure by just a stare. Her long hair was dazzling in golden hue, and her smile can melt any man's heart. But beauty does not give one authority. Cayena kneels before Emperor Rizef. In truth, Cayena was just a flower in a literal sense, with no imperial power at all. Cayena swears and accuses someone doing something to Duke Kedri. It's like Cayena was being framed and blames someone because it's not her own doing and reports it to her emperor brother. Cayena desperately pleads the emperor to punish the said person. But Rizef only looked down at his half-sister with indifferent eyes and calls her name in a cold voice. However, he changed into a smiling expression again while asking a question. "Do you still not understand?" Rizef mockingly asked. "You're stupid, but I didn't expect it to be this bad." Cayena widens her eyes in disbelief at Rizef's statement. Rizef approached Cayena bit by bit while revealing their person of interest named Olivia. Cayena apparently wants to kill this Olivia and hates her to the core. Rizef gets close to Cayena and whispers in ears to punish her instead. With a threatening voice, Cayena was not treated as the emperor's sister even by a single bit. Cayena found out too late about Rizef's true nature, someone who is ruthless and wicked. Cayena shouts at Rizef while in tears, so pitiful like a wilted flower. "I made you emperor," Cayena exclaimed. Cayena looked as if she was about to go mad. Rizef laughed at her distressed cries. "You still haven't realized that you were used? All authorities you have were borrowed from me." "My poor, pitiful doll," Rizef emphasized. The woman turned off the screen of her cell phone. It was a novel she had read many times to check on the Villainess's fall. This story is from a popular romance novel called The Lady of Black Rose. Cayena was pretty but was also a stupid and evil character. It's a typical story where all the characters in the novel are swayed by the female lead, Olivia, and fall in love with her. Cayena learns to hate Olivia because of jealousy, and gets taken advantage of by her little brother Rizef just to eliminate Olivia. Rizef had brought down dumb male aristocrats using Cayena as a puppet. He had also used her looks and poisonous personality to keep the female aristocrats in line. Until now, she had done an excellent job, but she had gradually become a nuisance to him. With Rizef betraying Cayena, the plan to poison Olivia fails. It was heartbreaking to read about how Cayena was sold to Viscount Gillian to lead a miserable life as punishment ordered by Rizef. In the end, Cayena died a tragic end after being abused by Viscount Gillian. Even during work, the woman couldn't stop thinking about the novel. She kept getting a strange sense of déjà vu. The woman and the villainess were similar. They were both dolls that had been thoroughly used by someone. "Are you still upset?" the manager asked. "Thanks to me, you've become the youngest team manager. This position, don't forget that I was the one who helped you get here. You need to realize that all of your power is borrowed from me since I helped you." The woman laughed at herself as she remembered Rizef's lines in the novel. It was similar. She was tired of living as someone's doll. That was when it happened. "It's all your fault." A voice is heard from someone. The woman vaguely heard it since she thought she was alone. Someone was standing on the driver's side of her car. He was wearing a black sweater and a hat that shaded his face. It felt ominous. "Who are you?" The woman turned back. "It's because of you that I've ended up like this." The man was holding a knife, which felt that the situation is dangerous. Without warning, he rushed up to the woman and stabbed her stomach with a knife. The woman widens her eyes as she was caught off guard by the sudden attack. Blood splattered everywhere as the woman was stabbed deeply in her stomach. The woman, grasping at her wound, curls up as she was feeling the pain. And the realization is slowly coming about her impending death, as she recognized that he was the one who lost the project because of her. The woman struggled to look up at the man before losing consciousness. "I guess villainesses all end the same way." Her vision dimmed. She closed her eyes as she waits slowly on her demise. It isn't so bad to die like this. That was the woman's last memory. Ugh, her head was throbbing and she was thirsty. The woman slowly opened her eyes and curled in on herself as she coughed several times. She hears many voices which were unfamiliar to her and calls out to her with a different name. Holding her throbbing head, the woman looked around. What happened? She was definitely stabbed, the woman thought. She definitely died, but now she was in an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people. Then, the door opened and someone came in. It was a young man with golden hair. He narrowed the distance between them in an instant. The woman turns around to see the man who approached her all of a sudden. The man held the woman's hand. The man then kissed her hand carefully and looked at her with a worried expression. "Cayena, are you all right?" The man spoke. How can this be?" The realization struck her like lightning. The woman vividly remembered Rizef's lines and his betrayal in the near end of the novel. It was the time that his cold words reached Cayena, and her instinct told her that something was horribly wrong. Cayena, who had never been treated like this, in that same day, her world fell apart. The woman started to cry as she remembered Cayena's desperate end. And she was inside of Cayena's body right now, so the feeling resonates more. She slowly get up on her bed. "Cayena, where are you going?" Rizef asked. However, Cayena only looked somewhere else, ignoring Rizef's question. She looks at herself in the mirror. That ethereal beauty is definitely what Cayena described to be, and she is now Cayena. The former Cayena is gone. Maybe it was at that time that she was poisoned that she died. Now, she is Cayena and Cayena is her. Cayena then fainted afterwards. "I'm really back, sitting on the bed," Cayena thought about this chaotic situation. Cayena was the villainess of the novel, the Lady of the Black Rose. However, the situation was not as simple as that. In the novel, she acted as a proper villainess and, as befitting of such a role, was killed by her crazy husband, and she is now reincarnated as the villainous Cayena. She only had happened to read a novel, but in that novel, Cayena was portrayed as a foolish and wicked character. Feeling a sense of déjà vu, she thought that she is fated to die in the end. I probably died, right? She only knew the person who stabbed her by his face. Cayena was interrupted in her thoughts as she was suddenly called by a maid. "Your Royal Highness, have you woken up?" The maid who was stationed in the room approached her. The maid told her that she is in a terrible appearance right now due to poison. Poison? Cayena was confused. Perhaps she is still lightheaded on her situation that she was unable to recall things. Suddenly, she realized why she was in this condition. "This is when I drank the poison." Not too long ago, Cayena was at a banquet when she drank some alcohol and began spitting up blood. The grand hall had echoed with screams and cries. That event was a chaos since the Empire's royal princess was poisoned in front of everyone. What the hell? Her head starts to ache with a splitting pain all of a sudden. She began to recall all of Cayena's memories vividly. Of all things, why did she have to return to this time when her body was still sick? The maid suggested to call a doctor for Cayena since she looks like she is still not feeling well. Cayena refused. The maid is slightly puzzled since Cayena was not causing a ruckus as she used to, but still follows the order. Cayena remembered that in the past it was Vera who was in charge around here. Vera was also one of Rizef's people to keep in check on Cayena's movements. It was a bright morning in the Imperial Palace. The maid wiped her face with a wet towel and arranged her hair, as if it was only natural to do so. Cayena was facing by the door while the maid is combing her hair, as the rays of light radiates through the window. It was bizarre. She had nearly died, but the state of her beauty was still more important. However, she only closed her eyes, having no power to stop the maid and no reason to do so. With her blue eyes, she looked at herself in the mirror and brushed the cheek of her reflection. How terribly beautiful, she thought. The novel had repeatedly described Cayena's beauty to the point of exhaustion. Looking at herself, though, she thought that this sort of beauty was almost a talent. You have to stay beautiful so that your usefulness doesn't decrease. Cayena's only merits were her legitimacy in the imperial bloodline, her symbol as the most beautiful woman in the empire, and her status as the one and only princess. But in the end, this beautiful form will only be used as the emperor's doll. This was the extent of Cayena's current value. Motionless, she glanced at her lemon-colored hair in the mirror and smirked. The maid is increasingly suspicious and bewildered by the princess' behavior that's different from her past self. Who knew that this would happen again? Cayena happily thought that she reincarnated at the perfect time. How did I return as Cayena? She was elated at the fact that she is not too late to make things right. Cayena believed that she can still save herself into her own demise and plan things ahead to free from the shackles of her tragic fate. Additionally, she is capable of keeping Rizef under control. Rizef was a terrible tyrant and a poor ruler, and as his older sister, Cayena matched him in her viciousness. They were not born good in the first place. He was cruel, impatient, and impudent. Cayena's ruin was not knowing that he would act the same way to her too. Cayena must prevent before things get out of hand, and the only way she thought of to escape Rizef's grasps is to get married, and not to someone as crazy as Viscount Gillian, but some other man that is easy and decent. Rizef, her younger brother, never thought of her as family and abandoned her in the end. Cayena, who was immersed in her thoughts, was interrupted by the maid, saying that Rizef is asking to see her. It's finally here, the moment that Rizef asked to see her. That's fine. Cayena rose again from where she was lying down. The man who will become the Emperor of Eldame Empire, the novel's secondary male lead, and Cayena's half-brother, Rizef Hill. Rizef was a morally depraved person who killed the current emperor to take the throne. Despite his handsome appearance, Rizef was more sadistic than anyone else. Actually, most of the characters were like that. All characters except the heroine, Olivia, were socially powerful but insane. Rizef was a sociopath, Heinrich was mad with power, and Bale, was he even human? Among them, Raphael, the male lead, seemed to be the most normal. But he also had some mental problem. The current emperor, their father, was cold-blooded even to his children. It was to the point that if others saw how he interacted with them, they wouldn't even think that they were his children. Having grown up under this cold treatment, Rizef naturally grew up to be a tyrant. "How are you feeling, Cayena?" Rizef entered into her room and asks if she was feeling okay. She put a smile on her face and replied, "I can bear it." Cayena almost burst into laughter. It was such a strange thing to ask, coming from the person who made her sick. Rizef, who had expected Cayena to complain, paused for a moment at the unexpected reaction. "Is that so? I'm glad to hear that." He came to her bedside and sat down without asking for her permission. "Now, I can clearly see how carelessly you treat me." His tone was friendly, but there was no respect or courtesy. It was absurd to say that they were close. Rizef and Cayena were incapable of being friendly. Each of his actions showed just what he thought of Cayena. As their conversation continued, Rizef became confused. Something's definitely different from the usual. Rizef couldn't say what exactly it was, but that was what his intuition told him. Moreover, Cayena's mature attitude made it feel like he was dealing with someone else behind her mask. She didn't feel like his sister, but Rizef just glossed it over, thinking that it is because of sickness. He understood Cayena like the back of his hand. No, it was more accurate to say that he didn't even think about her in a different way. Rizef had always thought of Cayena as a beautiful but otherwise useless woman, and that was as it should have been, his precious little puppet. With that said, Rizef squeezed Cayena's hand to reassure her in finding who poisoned her. "Don't worry about me too much. You really don't see me as anything more or less than a tool to gain your throne." Cayena smiled, feeling detached, getting confirmation of the things she knew felt very strange. Right now, the two of them looked like the platonic ideal of a wonderful sibling relationship. If one didn't know the truth, they may have thought the two of them were very affectionate. She stared blankly at Rizef. "Stop looking for the culprit, Rizef." Cayena was well aware that her opponent was a predator who hid his claws while pretending to be a cat. "What are you talking about, Cayena?" In Rizef's mind, Cayena should have been running around, telling him to find out who was trying to hurt her. Why did she say to stop the search? "But Cayena, you realize that you nearly died." "That's right." Cayena lightly nodded her head, acknowledging the statement. "Because of you." Knowing the truth, Cayena could see clearly how Rizef carefully weaved his words. It was Rizef, not anybody else, who tried to poison Cayena. To be precise, he was trying to create a situation in which Cayena was clearly poisoned. So it was even more vicious and evil. Will Cayena be able to escape being a puppet and gain freedom? Or will she be swallowed within the Empire's schemes and tricks? That's all, folks. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment down below, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be posting more videos about good reads you may like, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. See you soon.